Hey, this is lesson 25. Welcome. In our last lesson, we saw commands with the to be verb, and we saw that the affirmative commands are just as common as the negative commands in English. And this is different than Spanish, because in Spanish we only see the negative commands with the to be verb. Today we want to see the commands for the first person plural. Now the first person plural is we, nosotros, right? So unlike Spanish, you can't tell the difference between commands for individuals or groups of people. You have to guess. This is not true with the first person plural, we. Okay, so here you have some examples in Spanish of commands in the first person plural in Spanish. And so when we translate the formula is right here, let's plus the verb. When we translate the formula, it seems very strange. So the literal translation seems really strange, but the sense is the same as Spanish. So we have let us go, which you really don't ever say that. Usually what you say is let's go. We always use the contraction, okay, let's go. So literally translated it would be this, but the real sense of the word is this. So this is how you translate it. Okay, so let's look at our sentences. It's pretty easy. You just put let's in front of the verb word and you have a command for the first person plural. So number one, let's get to work. Let's get to work. So the best translation for this, at least in Guatemala, is a trabajar. And then two, let's look into this matter more. Let's look into this matter more. So investiguemos este asunto más. Number three, let's get to the bottom of this. Let's get to the bottom of this. Lleguemos al fondo de eso. Number four, let's see. Let's see. Okay, I'll let you translate that. That should be pretty easy. Number five, let's get right into it. Let's get right into it. So that's going to be entrémosle. Number six, let's get right to the point. Let's get right to the point. And so that's going to be lleguemos al grano. Seven, let's all do our best. Let's all do our best. Okay, so that's going to be hagamos todos lo mejor que podamos. Es el sobreentendido. And I want you to notice that between the verbal antecedent and the complement, I have a subject here, right? Because I am saying everybody, right? So it divides those two things. We've seen that as a rule before. Okay. Number eight, let's get started. Let's get started. Empecemos. And then number nine, let's eat now. Let's eat now. I think you can translate that without any problem. Number 10, let's get together and say the let's stand together and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's stand together and say the Pledge of Allegiance. So the Pledge of Allegiance is the Jura la Bandera. All right, vocabulary 25 words and phrases, total to date 375. Alone, alone, as, best, best, between, bottom, but, get to, past tense, got, and then the participle, gotten, group, grouped, guess, guessed, individual. So that I think is hard to pronounce. The jewel, the D-U here is going to be jewel. Individual. Yeah, jewel. That's interesting, huh? Because what happens, remember the U, when it sounds like the U of Spanish, it takes a Y sound. So that Y sound interferes with the D right here. So you're saying like a J. Individual. Into. Leave, and so the past tense is left. So this is interesting because it has a vowel change from E to E, and then it also has the ED in the form of T, right? Leave, left. So the participle is left. All right, great. So we have a few phrases here that are pretty interesting. Leave me alone, and when are you leaving? When are you leaving? Okay, good. So we have the verb let. So let comes from the command that we've been looking at, and let is to these meanings. The interesting thing about let, this is one of those 15 verbs. Remember I told you that a few verbs in English have the same form in past tense as in the past participle. And so only the context of the sentence is going to tell you the intention of the writer or the speaker. Okay, look into. Remember, when you add a preposition to a verb, it changes the meaning of the verb. So there you go. Great. Matter. Okay, so this is what you say. This is an important phrase in Spanish, right? So, what's the matter? What's the matter? Okay, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So that's kind of a phrase that you're going to use a lot too. It doesn't matter. Okay, Pledge of Allegiance, point, same, seem, seemed, sense, strange, and then we have the stranger. So if you want to say a foreigner, then you're going to say this word, right? Foreigner. The G is silent, foreigner, so you can compare that. All right, great. Tell the difference, and then together, and then, I don't know, it seems like we saw this one before already, but here it is again, true and truth. Okay, unlike. So then we're going to look at some of our boxes here, and these are very useful for us. So we have the word between, which means entre, and then we have the word among, which means entre. So the Spanish speaker says, oh my gosh, which one do I use? Well, between you use between two things. So if it's between two things, between means necessarily that there are two things. So if I say between the options, for example, then what I'm saying is that there's only two options. But if I say among the options, then there's more than two options, because among means three or more. Okay, so here's a very important word, and it's a very small word, so we tend to just overlook it and not think much about it. And that word is as, and this means two very distinct things. One is como, and the other is mientras. Now remember that the other word that means como is like, so that's a good one to be aware of, right? Alright, so here's a little bit of help with prepositions. In is inside, out is outside, and into doesn't exist in Spanish as a word. It's going into. I translate this word, and obviously it doesn't make sense as a word in Spanish, but adentrando is the word into. So this word does not exist in Spanish, so be aware of it. It's an arrow. Into is ir adentro. Okay, very good. Well, I think that's it. It's been a quick lesson today. I've enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you in the next lesson.